Welcome, everyone, to Daniel Krug and Associates Wealth Management Review for August 13th, 2020. Today's presentation is titled, What's Up with the Stock Market? My name is Rocky Istvan. I'm the Chief Compliance Officer and Associate Wealth Manager at Daniel Krug and Associates. Daniel M. Krug, CEO and Senior Wealth Manager, will be joining me in just a minute here and being part of the presentation. Just a reminder that this presentation is for informational and illustrative purposes only. It should not be considered investment or tax advice. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to discuss and get a recommendation on, please just give us a call in the office and we'll set up an appointment to take care of that. Today's presentation, we're looking at about a 30-minute presentation, and then we will have about 5 minutes after that for question and answer. This session will be recorded. Right now, everyone is muted, so if you need to ask a question or would just like to say hi, please use the chat room on the side of the screen. We want to thank CNR, City National Rockdale, and Asset Marks, Kezia Samuel, for some of the data that we're presenting today. And let's move on to today's agenda. So I'm going to sign off here and walk us through what's going on and then come back on when Dan joins us. So today, what we're going to be covering is major developments that have happened in the past week or two, a COVID-19 update, an update on unemployment. We're going to dive a little deeper into what's driving the markets. I think you're going to find that interesting. And then Dan's going to go over the economy and some opportunities, and we will have time for Q&A at the end. A reminder of what wealth management means to us at Daniel Krug and Associates. Investment consulting, developing your investment strategy is a big part of any investment planning and wealth management planning. That's kind of the foundation of what we do. But in addition to that, there's 4 major areas of advanced planning that we work on. We work on wealth enhancement strategies, and you can see the sub-bullet points underneath that category. Wealth transfer strategies, wealth protection strategies, and charitable giving strategies. And when you put all this together, that's really how you enhance one's wealth and legacy. So let's talk about major developments. Major developments today or over this past week. We've got a long list. We're not going to be able to cover everything in today's presentation in detail, but we just wanted to highlight them. So here we are with the S&P is within 1% of the all-time price levels that we've seen historically. So we're going to go into that a little bit deeper. Recent jobs, the data is encouraging, but the pace of hiring has been slowing. We're going to touch on that. The manufacturing side of the economy sees signs of improvement. We got a slide on auto production, which is looking pretty good. When it comes to COVID, the U.S. national average cases and hospitalizations do continue to slowly decline. I know there's a lot in the news, but we're going to cover that. A recent national independent survey shows that 86% of us out there are dissatisfied with where things are going in the country. Compared to a year ago, that's a significant increase. And we're not going to touch on that today, but that is not a good sign. And we know why. There's a lot of things going on in our world today, besides COVID. When it comes down to the vaccine, it looks like we're looking at the first half of 2021 before there really will be dosages available. And it seems to be increasingly more difficult to have a national cohesive plan around COVID. It takes over 8 weeks to really implement any of these strategies. And yet, state by state, we're seeing different strategies, different things going on, making it very difficult to put a cohesive plan together. Schools are opening under every imaginable scenario. Every week we're hearing changes in the planning. They're going to open, they're not going to open, they're going to open a couple days. That right now is trending towards not opening the schools. And we saw this week the Big Ten announced they're not going to start the football season or plan to play this year. So a lot of things up in the air when it comes to schools. And finally, politics stalling the next fiscal stimulus. There's been a lot of political rhetoric going on back and forth about what needs to be in the bill and this and that, but we still believe there's going to be a $1.5 to $2 trillion stimulus package come out over the next week or two. And with that, I'm going to move into COVID, but we're going to let Dan come on board and join us. Dan, if you want to join us, CEO and Senior Wealth Manager at Daniel Krug and Associates, and he will take over from here, and I will sign off, and I will see you guys in a little bit.
Okay, thanks, Brock. Okay, so COVID update. Where are we at today? So one of the things with the COVID updates that we do is we'd like to really first give you a little information about what's going on across the U.S. We are going to drill down a little bit to Michigan as well. And what we're trying to accomplish here is first to understand where we are in the recovery, and then second, to give some perspective relative to, really what we face annually with different diseases in the United States. And then hopefully what they'll do is in understanding that perspective, really help people and maybe ease a little bit of fear out there that seems to be kind of elevated. So let's take a look. When you're looking at the United States, there's been in the news a lot about how the COVID has increased in the number of cases, increased in some of the hospitalizations. And if you look at this chart, it kind of shows you from a large view. In April, we had the major influx of the disease, New York, Michigan, New Jersey. We had about 5 states that just got hit real hard, and we had a major spike up. Then we started to understand the disease a little bit and start putting those measures in place to really kind of contain this and to help people get better faster. There's a lot that's been learned during this time. And as you can see on this chart, it has been decreasing all the way to about July. And then we had another uptick. One of the reasons we have that uptick, and I would venture to say that this is going to happen where we have these little, ebbs and flows all the way through the year. One of the reasons is as states open up, you're going to find that because they haven't been exposed to it like many of the first states have, you're going to see an uptick in individual states. But as they understand and as they react to it, you'll see it come back down. And I'll show you a couple examples of that as we move forward here. So when you look at this next chart really talks about how we've got a continued trend in positivity since July. So again, it shows you the hospitalizations, which are in black, and you can see that there was a rise from June to July. And there was also a rise in daily new cases. And there's actually a reason for that. If you think about it, they're projecting by September 1st that we will have over 1.8 million tests being done per day. That's a lot of tests. So when you're testing that much, you're going to have a whole lot more cases that come about. So that should not be a surprise at all. Our population in the U.S. is 331 million people, soon to be 332 because it goes up fast. So we've got a lot of testing that's going on right now. So the number of cases should not surprise anybody at this stage because, just mathematically, we're going to see more with the additional testing. So the good thing is we are getting the testing. That's what everybody wanted. We're actually ahead of the game right now. So it will help to curtail this in the future. If you look at Michigan, now Michigan, again, in April, we had that major uptick in the COVID. And once we got a handle on it and we had the stay home orders that came into place and the mask and all the PPE that was going with it, we saw a downturn in the flux of new and new deaths and new hospitalizations and such. And as you can see, based on around mid-June, we've kind of stabilized, and the projections out are that we will stay around this level really towards the end of the year. So I think we've really kind of put ourselves in a place where we've got it about as low as we're going to get it as far as the number of cases on a daily basis. So many, and I've had questions that come up about, okay, well, I like the chart with Michigan, but what else is going on with Michigan? Well, this chart here, this map, is a map taken directly from Michigan Start Map info. It's on Michigan's website, the government website. If you're not in Michigan, every one of the states has some kind of website that is pertaining to your state. For Michigan, Michigan's broken up into 8 different regions. And as you can see on this map, you've got currently, well, sorry, Michigan State fans, but it looks like maize and blue going on right now. So area 8 and 6, they're pretty much containing the outbreak. No real issues up there. And in the other areas, we're in an improving state. So of those 8 areas, there's 6 stages, and we're really kind of sitting in 2 stages right now. The question might be, how do we get to the final stage, which is the post-pandemic stage? Well, unfortunately, that's not really clear. We don't have any clear criteria. Initially, it was to flatten the curve. Well, at this point, we've just about flatlined it. So we're really kind of looking for information from the governor to find out when do we actually get to open back up again, because in Michigan, we did hear about a surge, a spike that was going on. But again, if you just go back to the previous slide, you can see that it was, I'm not sure where that spike is, because we've done a very good job as a state of getting this whole thing under control. So that's Michigan. Now, if you move to Arizona, because Arizona's been in the news as well, Arizona did a very good job in the beginning of keeping things kind of curtailed. It has just been recently in July and August that they started seeing that uptick. And this is where I think that we're going to see that ebb and flow nationally, is as different states open up, you're going to see some surges where maybe that state government didn't see where the issue was, but then they immediately go in and try to protect and correct. So even for Arizona, they're on a downtrend right now, and you can see that the projection is to really get close to where Michigan is at this point. Matter of fact, we actually overlaid both Michigan and Arizona to give you some kind of comparison from a time frame and from a spike standpoint for the deaths per day. And again, you can see with Michigan, that all occurred. The biggest swell happened in the beginning, and then we got it under control. Arizona was did a great job of flattening the curve in the beginning. As they opened up more, they saw a little bit of a swell, but again, they're getting that under control. Arizona certainly is nowhere near as bad as Michigan, certainly not as bad as New York, which really took the biggest brunt of all this as we tried to figure out what we were supposed to do. But all in all, I think we've got a good game plan going. Most of the states really have a handle on what's going on and how to address it. So I'm looking for positive things moving forward with this. Hospitalizations continue on a downward trend. Again, going to this map, you've got New York in the beginning. It's really kind of flattened out. But again, as some states have opened up, you see a little bit of a surge, but it's all coming back down again. So the hospitalizations are lowering, and certainly the ability to take care of the patients is increasing, which is lowering the death rate on this as well. So all good things there. This chart's kind of an interesting chart because it shows you which areas from an age group standpoint is getting hit the worst. And as you can see on this graph, the left side, you've got the percentage of deaths, and then the bottom axis are the age groups. And if you're 30 to 39, it's almost, or less, it's almost non-existent. You really don't see a major uptick until you get 65 and older. So those are the areas, that's the age group we really want to be protecting, especially when you get into the 85 plus years. We're already fragile at that point, so the COVID just kind of makes it much more difficult. But it gives you a little perspective as to where the disease is hitting the hardest. And speaking of perspective, let's talk a little bit about the 5 leading causes of death in the U.S. And those are like your heart disease, your diabetes, your lung cancer from smoking. Those are 3 of the 5 major ones. And when you look at this chart here, you've got the number of deaths, which is an annual number of death, is over 3 million per year. I mean, that's pretty massive. The annual cost, $387 billion. When you move down to the bottom part of this slide, you've got COVID-related deaths. And again, just trying to put this into perspective, you've got the number of deaths from COVID at 226 plus projected by November 20th. It's not there now, but that's what they're projecting. The estimated cost, $10 trillion, because we shut the country down. And again, we just need to have some perspective here because we lose people, unfortunately, every year, and that's just part of life. Though we want to keep this COVID thing under control as much as we can because every life is precious, at the end of the day, we're a little out of balance on the cost. And I think in the future, as they do studies on how this was attacked, I think you'll find more efficient ways in the future should we have another pandemic like this. But again, a little perspective. And it begs the question of, do you take the risk of going outside or not? And it's interesting, my wife Jennifer read a book from, actually written by Dr. Ben Carson years ago, and the title of the book is Take the Risk. And in this book, he really speaks about looking at life and learning to identify, choose, and live with acceptable risk. One of the quotes out of the book was, in our risk avoidance culture, we place a high premium on safety. And nowhere is that more true than this year with the amount that this disease is causing our country and worldwide. I would really recommend that you get this book, read this book, because it gives you a little bit more perspective on what's happening out there today, and anything that you do, whether it's riding a bike or a motorcycle or a car, there's risk in everything that we do. The question is how much risk do we want to take as we kind of observe what's going on out there today? Speaking of books, I just read in the Clarkston News yesterday, our very own Mary Lou Greenwood Snyder actually put out a book. It's on Amazon right now, so I want to give a shout out to Mary Lou on her success for that book. The book's called Touched by God. It is the original poems by Mary Lou Greenwood Snyder. You can get it on Amazon. It costs like $6.99. There's free shipping available. I would recommend getting this. It's a good time to kind of get centered and focused. So congratulations to Mary Lou. If you see her, just say hi and congratulations.